Hi. So you've probably read the AR kit design guidelines and watched some talks about how to use AR core and do interaction. I'd like to broaden that a little bit and talk about the whole life cycle of an AR design from discovery right through to the finish. And why is that? Well, part of the reason is when we make an AR app, we imagine the experience is going to be like this. We've got a bunch of happy people, the lighting's perfect, we're in our lounge room. But the reality is, when I discover your AR app, I'm on the train, right? And I might install it, and it goes immediately into my pile of shame. So I don't know, you probably all had this experience where you've installed something, you've meant to come back to it, and you never actually give it a shot. So what can we do about that? How do we think about the user all the way through this process? So my name's John Sietsma. I work for Unity. I'm not talking about Unity today, although I'm going to show some techniques, but feel free to come up to me afterwards and talk to me about what we're doing with Unity at AR. As was stated, I worked on a game for the Mobile World Congress in 2010, a location-based game. And I did a lot of work with Deco, and this. Let's do this. So Deco was around at about 2011, 2012, and so I need to give credit to the awesome team at Deco who made this amazing SLAM-based technology. It was really early on, iPhone 4 level real-time meshing and markerless tracking, and we spent 2.5 years around about that time thinking about AR interaction and design and how we guide users through this experience. And I especially need to give credit to my sister, Silke Meisnix, who took a lot of the screenshots you're going to see today and really worked with me, especially closely on the game design part of this. So I think it's really important to realize that there are a bunch of hurdles when we do AR. We kind of think it's this awesome new technology, but a lot of people want to use AR, they want to start using your app, but there are reasons why they don't. So often, as I pointed out, you need to be in the right place. If you're on the train, you can't design your living room. Often, there's initialization steps you need to do. You need to find planes and wiggle your phone around and do this sort of stuff before you can even get started. And also, often there's jargon that's thrown in your face. So what's a point cloud? Why do I need to find features? Why do I need to care about lighting? And this was a big insight for me at Deco, is that when we user testing these apps, people didn't know even how to use the phone. They'd see the camera feed, but not know that you had to move it around like this, like a camera operator to look at that this is your magic window into the world. We had to teach them everything from the start. And we live in this, we're inside the AR event horizon. We're used to this. This is kind of second nature to us, that's what we're doing. We don't even think about these first principles, but a lot of users of your apps are going to be outside of that event horizon and not have that understanding. So on the positive side, why are we doing this again? Well, I'm in a place here, there's lots of people around me, there's lots of context, I have really great spatial awareness. I want a technology here that's going to let me take advantage of those things and give me the information and the experiences that I need in this particular place that takes advantage of that. So this is the process we're going to look at. We're going to look about how we avoid the pile of shame, how we're going to get users into our app and avoid the drop-off at the beginning, a little bit about how to make a really great experience inside your app, and then what happens at the end. How do we get users to come back and use our app more than once? So discovery. This is really a bit more about discovery. It's about that idea of I've found your app on the train, but I need a living room. What can we do about that situation? So one of those is that, this is skip forward 2 slides. A really great example of that is the New York Times app. I'll try once more to get this video up. If we could go back a slide and play that video, please, that'd be great. So a really great example of that is the New York Times app. So you start off as a news reading app. I want to read the news, this is really great, it's its primary purpose. And it has as a progressive enhancement an AR part. So that's one way to think about this, is not to think about your app as an AR app, but to think about the functionality of your app, how you might be able to start in your app and then move into AR as an enhancement for what you're already doing. So here we can see you can move into AR after you're reading this article if you've got the right time and space, but there's still some utility without AR. And the other one is foretelling. When we want to use an AR app, we don't know what space-time requirements are going to be expected of us. It's really nerve-wracking for people to use a new technology. So this is an example of Enter the Room made by the Red Cross. You're meant to put down a virtual room and go inside and have an experience. How do you know you have enough room? They provide a ghost image of the room so you can place it and understand what's involved. So it's just a way to signal what's involved. So it's really important in your app to say, hey, what's going to be required of me in this situation? And do I have the space and time for it? Another really important thing to consider is, when do you use a mobile app? Well, there's often a prompter or a notification of some sort that gets you into your app. Even when we have the best intentions to use an app, often when we're in the right space and the right time, especially with AR where we have those hurdles, we've forgotten that app even exists. So what can you do? There's a lot of techniques we can use from standard game design and mobile app design as well. One of those prompters is a utility function. If I want to design my living room, then if I'm in the right space and time, then that might help me recall the app. Notifications are a really great one. In AR, we can explore geo notifications and just plain app notifications as well to say, hey, here's a really good time for you to start using this app because you're in the right place and you have the right context. So recognizing the context for the user. Often an emotional state comes into play, especially with games and entertainment. How can we get someone in an AR app to catch them when they're feeling bored or they want some entertainment or something like that? And another really strong prompter is progress and completion. We always have the LinkedIn example of this, of let someone start an experience, let someone start an AR app, start them off in 2D, start them off as an ordinary app, let them get started on something, and then have a prompter when they're in the right place and time to then go into AR mode to finish whatever it is they started. So let's talk about entry. So the thing we found here is that users don't have a lot of brain bandwidth when you're in AR. A lot of people, like I said, are at this for the first time. Most of their focus and concentration is, how do I use this? How do I move my phone around? How do I interact? You've got to pare down your experience more and more and more. And you need to teach your user a whole bunch of things. You need to teach that interaction. You need to teach camera movement before you even teach the utility of your app. So one thing that I really recommend is chunking that experience down. One idea is maybe you don't start directly in AR mode. Maybe this is an example from Deco with the Deco monkey. We start in 2D. And what the two important things we do are we set a fiction. So we've got some characters we introduce, and we have some idea about what you're going to do in that app. Okay, so that's already, you chunk this information down, you've already learnt step one. Step two, okay, flip a slide, please. Forward one. So step two is going into your AR mode, but in this case, we're going into a halfway between state. We're introducing the 3D elements. We've introduced our characters in 3D, but we haven't gone to a full 3D state. Often when we go into an AR app, you have a camera feed and nothing else. And it's really confusing for people. So here we have the 3D characters anchored to the camera. So they're not actually in the real world space yet, but they do respond to gyro and these sorts of things, and they're there to guide users through the next stage of entry here, where we're getting towards AR mode. Still helping with this fiction and still helping them go through this experience. And so now we're getting to the point now where usually we make the user work for us. The user wants utility out of our app, and the first thing we do is ask them to find planes and understand jargon and do all this sort of stuff for us. So why don't we carry the fiction across and make this a fun experience? So here we're looking for a good landing spot. These clouds respond as we look up and down, and they give us some feedback as we go. But it's still part of the experience. And you can still do this even if it's not a game, even if it's a utility app. You can still create a fiction or concentrate on the utility the user's going to get out of this. Get them started using things straight away before you found a plane, before you've gone through the full initialization period. Let's try and reduce the gap. Let's try and reduce the hurdle so people don't get stuck at this and go, oh, I don't know what a point cloud is, exit the app. I also think the first thing that people should be doing is thinking about error handling. So again, this is a really common scenario that we found, is that people go into an AR app, but they're not doing it the way that you expect. Remember, we have this assumed knowledge. We're looking at the table, we're looking at a nicely patterned service, we've got the light on. Most users, or a substantial proportion of users, come into your app and the room's too dark, they're not looking in the right spot, they're doing something that you're not expecting. And so error handling is really a key component for you to think about to get people into your app and stop that drop-off from starting the app to before they actually do anything useful with your app. So here we've kept the fiction, we can see the clouds tilting down, and we've given them some advice on how to get back, on what they can do. And we've not used jargon words here, we've used some real words here that keep with our story to get a user back where we want them to be. A lot of the time you'll see in AR apps a model spinning around or things just disappearing completely when you're in an error state. So now we've gone through that step. We've reminded and prompted people to use our app. We've got the right location and context. We've chunked our learning and we've got people into an experience so they've successfully, now we've successfully got to where we want them to be and where they want to be, where they can start using their app for something that they want to do. What do we do now? Well, I'm not going to go through all the tips and tricks on this. There's really great material out there already, but I'm just going to emphasize one thing that's really important is really this sense of immersion. When we're in AR, we have virtual elements that we're rendering and we have real world, and we have the real world as well. And often those bits don't meld together and it looks like a model's floating on top, or people don't believe that these models are actually in the world. So anything that you can do where the virtual world interacts with the real world increases your immersion. So I'm going to show you some techniques for that. So examples of physics, lighting, these sorts of things. And so, yeah, we can play that video. So this is a Deco Monkey example again. Some of these things are we have the flowers on the table and we're leaving paint spats around us. Notice we have the floating clouds as well, which is a really natural way of handling when people aren't looking in the right direction. We have the visual weenies from the Disneyland perspective of things that guide us back to our play space. This is the IKEA app. So this is one thing that you should do is have a shadow under things. Shadows really help ground things. These shadows and the examples I'm going to show now are available as samples in the AR kit and AR core packages as well for Unity, so feel free to grab those. This is not magic, you can just grab these things and use them. In this case, I've got just a simple blob shadow underneath the chair, and that's not a bad solution. You can do real-time lighting as well, but we don't know where the light's necessarily coming from in the game, or your app. So even though we've got a strong light coming in from the right-hand side, this shadow still kind of makes sense, and it really helps us believe that chair is sitting on the ground rather than being just on our screen. Can we play that video, please? The next one is occlusion. So right now we've detected a plane on top of our desk, and but we've made it invisible. So what happens with this gnome on the ground is when we go over the plane, that gets hidden behind that invisible plane, and that helps us really believe this gnome is really on the floor. As we're going across, then it gets hidden as well. So thinking about this is also really important. How can we occlude things in our environment to make us really believe? Next slide, please. This is a HoloLens example. This is this is really great. I love this example. If we can get one of our virtual models and embed it into our real world, then that's the most believable of all, right? So here we have a model that's in the wall, and it makes us feel like we're looking beyond the wall. We have a really nice parallax effect here as we look around, and it really helps us believe. So if you can get models and your virtual content and embed it somewhere onto a plane or in your world, that really helps people believe that it's part of that experience as well. Okay, let's go back one slide. And so here's another example from Tablet Racer. These skid marks, helping us leave virtual marks on our environment, helps us believe that we're there. And the physics here, so the car is running into the tissue box, and this really helps us believe that the car is interacting with the box. If you don't have meshing, you can still use planes for physics. You can still bounce things off planes and still have things that interact in that way as well. So physics is another really great way to get this immersion happening. Play the video, please. So the other one is lighting. We all, in AR Kit and AR Core, you get this light estimation, which will ramp lighting up and down for you, which is really great. Here's an example I've made where I've gone a step further, and I've used the camera feed here to, as a skybox or to add light into my environment. So you can see here with this robot, you can see the reflections in this robot, right? As it moves through the environment, you can see the red jacket coming off it. It's not strictly accurate because I only have the camera to work with, but it's close enough that it actually responds and reacts to the environment, which is exactly what we want to happen. This is not part of the samples, but if you search for my name in GitHub, you'll find this as well, and feel free to use that on your own project. Great, so now we've got people into this immersive environment, and we've used all these physical and virtual interactions to make them believe that they're really there and that things are really part of the world. They've done the job we want them to do. How do we get them to come back? What do we do to, I'm sure most of you here have just used an AR experience once and then deleted it and never used it again. So how do we get people to come back for a second time? Well, there's a few things you can do. One is remind people what they've done. Remember, we're looking at progress and completion here. We're looking at utility, and we're focusing on the user and what they're going to get out of the application. So let's just remind them that this has been a useful experience. Let's also remind them that it's saved. A lot of AR applications at the moment now are one use only. Once you've done something and you come back, it's a fresh slate. So let's save what they've done and let them know that when they come back again, they can pick up from where they've left off. And also, let's reinforce our prompters and notifications that we've put out at the beginning. So why should they come back? Is it when they're in a different location? Is there a different time? Finishing a job? Let's set up those reminders. That could be an email, that could be a phone notification, or it could just be a mental reminder for that user, hey, let's come back to this thing tomorrow. And if we've got that entry period and they've had a great experience, then they're going to want to come back and finish and have another experience again. So the whole point of this talk really is to talk about outside of our interaction, outside of our AR. Let's look at the full life cycle of AR and how we can stop this drop-off from people hearing about your idea, hearing about your app, and actually getting some use out of it. So I just encourage you to think about that full life cycle and use some of the pointers here to make your app survive contact with users in the wild. So thanks very much.